Welcome to the Deep Dive, your shortcut to getting truly well informed, maybe with a few surprising facts, and just enough, well, fun to keep you hooked. Today, we are diving deep into something that's frankly crucial for every single one of us: UK pension planning and achieving genuine financial freedom down the line. We're drawing our insights from a really comprehensive guide put together by the team right here at Plouta. Now, as part of the Plouta team ourselves, we really want to share that our mission is, well, pretty simple. It's to empower individuals, people like you, with clear, trustworthy financial insights. Insights that help you achieve true financial freedom. We genuinely believe understanding your financial future shouldn't be this, scary thing. And this deep dive is all about demystifying it. Okay, quick but really crucial disclaimer first. This deep dive, it's based on our review of Cloud's general guide and the scenarios in it. It absolutely does not constitute personal financial advice. Your situation is unique. So we strongly encourage you, really, seek professional, regulated financial advice tailored for you. Right, with that important bit covered, we'd love for you to join our financial wellness community. Make sure you subscribe, like this deep dive, maybe share it with someone who needs this kind of clarity. And please drop a comment below with your first thoughts on planning for retirement. We genuinely love to hear what you think.
That's exactly right. And, for so many people, that big question, how much do I actually need to retire? It can feel a bit like trying to hit a moving target in the dark. It
Right.
feels abstract, huge, maybe even a bit overwhelming. But what we really want to do today is break that big question down, turn it into tangible, maybe even achievable scenarios. We'll be giving you the clarity of the tools straight from Plouter's perspective to help you start planning effectively. So yeah, in this deep dive, we're going to explore how your dream lifestyle actually translates into, well, real numbers. We'll unpack how you can calculate your target pension pot, talk about the really vital role of the state pension, often underestimated, I think.
Mm.
We'll walk through some practical scenarios, paint a clear picture of different retirement lifestyles, and maybe most importantly, reveal why starting early is probably the single most powerful thing you can do for your financial future.
Okay, so let's unpack this. When people first think about retirement, there's often this nagging question, isn't there? Is there some magic number I need to hit? Does Plouta's guide sort of lean into that idea, or does it push back?
That's a really good place to start. And Plout is quite clear on this. There is absolutely no single magic number for retirement. It's just not a one-size-fits-all figure, the amount you specifically need. It depends entirely on the lifestyle you actually picture for yourself in those later years. Are we talking, just the essentials covered, or are you dreaming of traveling the world in style? Big difference.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I find it interesting how Plauta frames those goals. Instead of just hitting you with a giant lump sum figure, which could feel a bit abstract, they break it down. They talk about three common monthly income targets: £1,500, £2,500, and £3,500. How does shifting the focus from that huge pot number to a monthly income actually help people visualize retirement better?
Well, massively. It just makes it instantly relatable, doesn't it? We all think in terms of our monthly outgoings right now,
Yeah.
Rent or mortgage, bills, food shopping, going out. So setting a monthly income target for retirement makes that goal feel much more tangible, much more real than just a huge abstract number like £500,000 or something. But before we dive into those specific lifestyle scenarios, we really need to establish two foundational elements. These underpin all the calculations we'll talk about. First up, there's the full state pension. This is absolutely crucial. It's a secure foundation for most people's retirement income. Now, for the scenarios we're discussing today, we're going to assume you're entitled to the full new state pension. For the 2025-26 tax year, that's approximately 11,975 times per year.
Okay.
Which works out to, let's see, about $998 per month. And that's an income that's secure, usually rises each year. It provides a real baseline.
Right, a solid starting point. What's the second element?
The second one is a common rule of thumb. You might have heard of it, known as the 4% rule. Essentially, it's a guideline for how much income you might be able to safely withdraw from your private pension pot each year, aiming to make it last throughout your retirement, say 30 years or so.
Okay, the 4% rule. How does that work in practice?
Well, let's take an example. Say you wanted to generate £10,000 of annual income from your private pension. Using this rule, you'd need a pot of roughly £250,000.
Ah, because £10,000 is 4% of £250,000.
Exactly. Now, it's really important to stress this is a guideline. Things like investment performance, inflation, living longer, they can all affect it. A more cautious withdrawal rate, maybe 3.5%, might mean you need a larger pot. But for planning purposes today, it's an excellent starting point.
Got it. Guideline, not guarantee.
Precisely. And just one more clarification. All the scenarios we're looking at assume you're a single person,
Okay.
that you're mortgage and rent-free by the time you retire.
Right. Big assumption, but simplifies things.
It does for these examples. And that you're aiming to retire at age 67, which is the current state pension age for many. We know everyone's situation is different. We'll touch on that nuance later on.
Perfect. Okay, so with those building blocks, the State Pension Foundation and the 4% rule guideline, let's actually bring these numbers to life. Plouta's guide, I think, does a great job here, painting a really vivid picture of what these different income levels might actually feel like day to day. They use benchmarks from the Pensions and Lifetime Savings Association, the PLSA, you might have seen their retirement living standards. And they use these to define what Plouta calls minimum, moderate, and comfortable retirement lifestyles. So let's start at the beginning. What does that minimum lifestyle look like?
All right, so for a minimum lifestyle, according to these standards, you're targeting an income of £1,500 per month. That works out to £18,000 per year.
Okay, £18,000 a year. What does that buy you?
Well, the PLSA suggests this income covers all your essential needs: food, bills, housing costs, assuming you're mortgage-free. And it leaves a little bit left over for, let's say, social participation. You might be able to afford a week-long holiday in the UK each year, maybe eat out a few times a month. But importantly, this level generally doesn't cover the costs of running a car.
Right, so essentials plus a little bit extra, but no car. How does the maths work out for needing a private pension pot then?
Okay, let's break it down. Your target annual income is £18,000. First, we subtract the assumed full state pension, which we said was 11,975 HAS.
Okay.
That leaves 6,025 HAS on per year that needs to come from your private or workplace pensions.
Got it. 6,025 pounds needed from the pot.
Exactly. So now we use that 4% rule we discussed. To generate 6,025 HAS a year, you'd need a private pension pot of approximately 150,000 pounds.
150,000 pounds. Okay. Is that achievable for an average person?
Yes. Plouta suggests this is actually highly realistic, especially for someone who's been automatically enrolled into a workplace pension, perhaps from their early 20s, earning an average sort of salary throughout their career. It shows the power of starting early and consistent saving, even at standard auto-enrollment levels.
That's actually really quite reassuring, knowing that a basic, decent foundation is potentially within reach for many people just through the standard system. Okay, that's a great starting point. Now, let's think about stepping things up a bit. What if you want a little more comfort? And just a quick reminder for everyone listening, if you're finding this breakdown helpful, please do give us a like, share this with a friend, and subscribe to support more deep dives from Plouta. We'd also love you to comment which retirement lifestyle are you maybe aiming for. Minimum, moderate, comfortable, let us know.
Good point. Okay, moving on up to scenario 2. This is the moderate lifestyle. Here, the target income jumps to £2,500 per month.
Which is 30,000 pounds a year.
Exactly, £30,000 annually. Now, this represents quite a significant step up in financial comfort. It offers more security, more flexibility. What does it look like? Well, the PLSA suggests this kind of lifestyle could afford you, say, a 2-week holiday in Europe each year.
Nice.
Yeah, a more generous budget for eating out, hobbies, other leisure activities. And importantly, it typically includes enough to run a small car, maybe replacing it every 10 years or so.
Okay, so definitely a noticeable jump in what you can do. What does that mean for the pension pot needed?
Right, let's do the maths again. Target annual income, £30,000. Subtract the state pension. 9 is 11,975 pounds. So the income needed from your private pensions is 18,025 per year.
18,025 pounds, applying the 4% rule.
Applying the 4% rule, you need a private pension pot of approximately 450,000 pounds.
Wow, okay. 450,000 pounds. That is a big jump from 150,000.
It is. It really highlights that achieving that moderate level of comfort definitely requires more deliberate planning and saving compared to the minimum scenario. Auto-enrollment alone might not quite get you there without higher contributions.
That's a really key point. It shows the difference between just essentials and having that bit more freedom. Okay, so that's moderate. Let's explore the top-tier era. Plouta outlines the comfortable dream. What does life look like then, and what kind of pot are we talking about?
All right, scenario 3, the comfortable lifestyle. Here, the target income is £3,500 per month.
So 42,000 pounds a year.
42,000 pounds per year. And this income level, as the name suggests, really allows for significantly more financial freedom, more luxuries, a bit more spontaneity, perhaps. The PLSA standards indicate this could fund things like multiple holidays each year, maybe including some long-haul travel, regular meals out at nice places, a higher budget for shopping, leisure, maybe helping family out a bit, and typically running a newer car, perhaps replacing it every 5 years instead of 10.
Okay, that definitely sounds comfortable. So the calculation, 42,000 pound target.
Yep, target annual income, 42,000 pounds. Subtract the state pension. Same, 11,975. That means you need 30,025 years per year from your private pensions.
30,025, using the 4% rule again. Carry the one.
Huh. Using that same 4% guideline, the required private pension pot jumps up significantly again to roughly 750,000 pounds.
£750,000. Phew.
Yeah, it's a substantial sum, no doubt about it. Achieving this level undeniably requires a very dedicated, consistent, long-term saving strategy, likely involving contributions well above the auto-enrollment minimums for a large part of your career.
Okay, so we've laid out the watts. We've got these three potential targets: 150K for minimum, 450K for moderate, and 750K for comfortable, roughly speaking, on top of the state pension. Now, the really big question, how on earth do we actually get there? What does Plouta's guide tell us about the sort of monthly saving habits needed? And crucially, what difference does when you start make?
Ah, yes. This is where the power of time, the magic of compounding, really comes into sharp focus, and frankly, where Plouta's guide reveals the quite staggering cost of delaying starting. It illustrates very clearly how much you might need to contribute monthly to reach these targets. These figures assume a 5% annual investment return after any fees, and you're aiming to have the pot ready by age 67. Let's focus on the moderate and comfortable scenarios as they require that more proactive saving we talked about.
Okay, let's hear the numbers. Brace yourselves, maybe.
Okay, for the moderate lifestyle, aiming for that 450,000 pounds pot. If you start saving diligently at age 25, you'd need to contribute, in total, approximately 270 pounds per month.
270 pounds a month starting at 25 for the moderate pot.
Okay, now watch what happens if you wait. If you start saving at age 35, that monthly figure jumps up to 495 pounds per month.
Nearly double, just for waiting 10 years.
Exactly. And if you delay starting until age 45, you're looking at needing to find 990 pounds per month.
Wow, almost 1,000 pounds a month. That really shows the cost of waiting.
It really does. Now let's look at the comfortable lifestyle, targeting that 750,000 pound pot. Starting at age 25, you need around 450 pounds per month in total contributions.
Okay, 450 pounds a month from 25.
If you start at age 35, that rises to 825 pounds per month.
Again, nearly double.
And if you wait until age 45 to start aiming for that comfortable pot, the required monthly contribution becomes a very significant 1,650 pounds a month.
1,650 pounds a month. Yeah, those figures might make your eyes widen a bit. I know mine did, seeing them laid out like that.
They certainly grab your attention. But there's a really crucial clarification here that Plouta makes, and it's vital not to miss it. That monthly contribution needed figure. That's the total amount going into your pension pot each month.
Oh, so not just what comes out of my payslip necessarily.
Precisely. It includes your personal contribution from your salary, PLUS, your employer's contribution, which is often overlooked,
Yeah.
PLUS, the tax relief you get from the government on your contribution.
Right. That's huge. So your employer match and the tax relief are doing a lot of the heavy lifting.
A lot of the heavy lifting, especially with workplace pensions. It makes those monthly figures look, well, perhaps a bit less terrifying than if you thought it was all coming directly out of your own pocket after tax.
That clarification is absolutely vital. Thinking about the total contribution makes it feel much more manageable. So we've seen the what and the how much per month, but people always have follow-up questions, don't they? What are some of the common ones Plouta's guide anticipates and addresses? You mentioned the employer contribution thing.
Yes, that's a big one. People often forget just how valuable that employer match is. It's essentially free money towards your retirement. Another really common question is, do these pension pot targets, the 150K, 450K, 750K, already account for the state pension?
And the answer is?
A definite yes, absolutely. The pension pot required figure we calculated for each scenario is the amount you need on top of or after factoring in the income you're assumed to get from the full new state pension. So the state pension really is providing that foundational layer, meaning the pot you need to build yourself is lower than it otherwise would be.
Okay, good. That confirms the state pension is the bedrock. What about that 4% rule? You said it was a guideline. How reliable is it, really?
That's a fair question. It is a fantastic starting point for calculations, widely discussed, often cited as a safe withdrawal rate. The idea is that if you withdraw 4% in year one, then adjust that amount for inflation each year after, your money has a very high probability, not a certainty, but high probability of lasting for at least 30 years. However, it is not a cast iron guarantee. Life happens.
Like what? What could throw it off?
Well, several things. Really poor investment performance over a long period, for instance. Or unexpectedly high inflation eating away at your purchasing power faster than expected. Or simply you might live much longer than 30 years in retirement, which is great news, but means your pot needs to last longer.
So it's a useful planning tool, but you need to be aware of the assumptions and risks.
Exactly. A starting point for planning, a useful benchmark, but not an etched-in-stone promise from the universe. Reviewing your plan regularly is key.
Okay. And you already clarified the monthly contributions aren't just my money.
Correct. Worth repeating because it's so important. That total monthly figure needed is your contribution plus your employer's contribution plus government tax relief. Don't underestimate the power of those last two.
Right. What about other savings? Like if I have an ISA or other investments, how does that fit in? Does that change the pension pot I need?
Ah, yes. Great point. Other savings absolutely play a role in your overall retirement picture. If you have substantial savings outside of pensions, perhaps, in a stocks and shares IS, for example, the income or withdrawals you take from that are usually tax-free.
Unlike pension income, which is mostly taxable.
Exactly. So having significant ISA savings could mean you need to draw less income from your taxable pension pot to meet your lifestyle goal, which in turn might mean the required pension pot could be smaller than the scenarios suggest, or alternatively, it could allow you to have a higher overall income in retirement by combining pension and ISA withdrawals. It gives you flexibility.
So it's about looking at the whole picture, not just the pension in isolation.
Precisely. Your house, other investments, partner situation, it all feeds in.
Okay, and one last, very real question for many people. What if I look at those monthly contribution figures, even the lower ones, and think, I just can't afford that right now? What's the advice then?
Yeah, that's a very common and completely understandable concern. Seeing figures like 495 or 990 pounds a month can feel daunting. The first and most important message from Plouta is, don't be discouraged. These scenarios are targets, they're illustrations. But honestly, any saving is better than no saving at all. The most crucial thing is just to start.
Start small, but start somewhere.
Exactly. A fantastic strategy, especially if money is tight, is to focus first on your workplace pension. Make absolutely sure you're contributing at least enough to get the full match contribution from your employer.
Because that's the free money bit.
That's the free money. Don't leave it on the table. Then a really powerful technique is save the raise. Every time you get a pay rise, however small, try to increase your pension contribution percentage by just 1% or maybe 2% before you get used to the extra cash.
Ah, so you barely notice it in your take-home pay, but it boosts your pension saving.
You often won't even notice that small difference month to month, but over years and decades, thanks to compounding, it will make a truly huge difference to the size of your final pot. Small, consistent steps add up enormously over time.
Those answers cover so much ground. That's brilliant. It really drives home that even small, consistent actions, especially when you leverage things like employer matching and tax relief, can have a massive impact over the long run. Okay, so as we start to wrap up this deep dive, let's pull it all together. What are the absolute key takeaways, the most impactful, maybe even surprising lessons that people should really take away from Plouta's guide in these scenarios?
Right, the so what, for everyone listening, I think it boils down to about 5 really crucial insights. First, and we've hammered this home, but it bears repeating, Plouta's guide doesn't just say start early. It vividly shows the truly staggering cost of delay. What often surprises people isn't just that it costs more later, but how much more. Seeing that required monthly saving potentially double just by waiting 10 years. That's a penalty few consciously realize they might be signing up for. Time is your most powerful asset.
Use it or lose it, basically.
Pretty much. Second key insight, your workplace pension is your superpower. Honestly, for most people aiming for anything beyond that minimum lifestyle, hitting those moderate or comfortable figures realistically relies heavily on getting those employer contributions and the tax relief over many years. So our strong advice, speaking as part of the Plouta team, is never opt out of your workplace pension if you can possibly avoid it. You're just giving up too much potential future wealth.
That free money again.
Exactly. Third insight, and this is a common trap Plouta's numbers really highlight, the legal minimum for auto-enrollment, currently 8% total contribution. It's a fantastic start, absolutely. Getting people saving is huge, but For many people, that 8% alone is unlikely to be enough to reach a genuinely comfortable retirement, and maybe not even a moderate one without other savings.
So it gets you in the game, but might not be enough to win the game you want.
That's a great way to put it. Aim beyond the minimal if your circumstances allow. That save the raise strategy we mentioned is perfect for gradually increasing it over time without feeling the pinch too much.
Okay, number 4.
Number 4, don't forget your state pension. It can feel like the boring part of retirement planning, maybe, but it's like the unsung hero quietly doing a lot of the heavy lifting in the background for these calculations. It provides that strong, reliable foundation. So we strongly encourage you, go to the gov.uk website and check your state pension forecast.
See what you're on track for.
Yes. See what you're projected to get, and crucially, check your national insurance record. Are there any gaps? Sometimes you can fill those gaps by paying voluntary contributions, which can significantly boost your state pension amount. Worth investigating.
Definitely worth checking. And the final key insight.
And finally, always remember, these are just scenarios. They're powerful illustrations, benchmarks to help you think and plan. But your personal situation will be different. You might have other savings, as we discussed, ISAs, property. You might have a partner with their own pension plans. You might inherit money or have different spending needs. All these factors will alter your specific calculations and how much you need. Use these scenarios as a starting point for your own personalized planning.
That's a perfect summary. It really shows how figuring out how much can seem incredibly daunting at first glance, that huge number. But as Plouta's guide demonstrates so well, breaking it down into a target monthly income makes it feel so much more tangible, more manageable. And as we've seen today, even those larger pots, £450,000, £750,000, while significant, are potentially achievable, especially through consistent, long-term saving, starting early, and really making the most of that workplace pension superpower.
That sums it up perfectly. Really, the most important step for you now, listening to this, is to understand where you are today with your savings and think honestly about where you truly want to be in retirement. Plouta really encourages you to take practical steps. Use an online pension calculator. There are lots out there. Check that state pension forecast we mentioned. And then based on that, start making a concrete plan, even if it's just small steps initially. Because honestly, the sooner you start that journey, the smoother and easier the path to a comfortable, financially free retirement is likely to be. So here's a final thought to leave you with. What small step, however tiny, can you take today or this week to make your future retired self really proud of you? We genuinely want to know what you think. Please join our financial wellness community, subscribe to the deep dive right now, like this deep dive, and maybe share it with just one person you know who needs this clarity. And definitely drop us a comment below. What financial goals are you thinking about now after listening? Or what was the most surprising thing you heard about the pension scenarios today? Let's get the conversation started.
Fantastic. Thanks so much for diving deep with us today on this really important topic. We'll see you next time on The Deep Dive.